Today's episode is all about marketing that works without wasting time or money. And I'm joined by a special guest today, Sophie Walton, who is our go-to expert for the Retail Champion on email marketing, remarketing, CRM, paid social, Google Ads, and LinkedIn.
That's a lot, isn't it? Sounds good. Yes, thank you for having me.
Welcome back to Retail Reckoning. I'm Clare Bailey, the Retail Champion, and today we're diving into something every retailer needs to know: how to make your marketing actually work without wasting time, money, or brain power. A lot of people say to me, oh, email's old school, it's dead, it's all about social media now. But social media ads are a black hole and they're a money pit. But done right, email, CRM, paid social, Google Ads, and even LinkedIn work together to grow your sales. Hopefully, they will recover you lost customers and build loyal fans. So I'm joined today by my colleague Sophie, the go-to expert on social media, email marketing, remarketing, CRM, and ad campaigns. Thank you, Sophie, very much for joining us today. Sophie is our guru in email marketing, CRM, and paid ads, and everybody needs to listen to her advice because if she doesn't know it, nobody knows it. So let's start with the basics. Why is it that email does in fact still outperform many other channels?
Email is your own data. It's personal. You can very much tailor and personalize communications with email. It's fully owned by your business, so you're not relying on fighting on an algorithm or other people that are effectively in auction online to generate new leads, purchases, whatever else it might be. Once it's yours, it's yours. When you get your email strategy and campaigns right, it's an incredibly efficient way to generate revenue for your business, increase customer lifetime value, and very importantly, customer retention.
But I think a lot of small retailers believe that email is just about shouting about offers or sharing deals. And I don't think they really understand about building the journey. And I know you talk a lot about building the journey. So could you share with us some of the biggest mistakes that you see retailers making with email marketing and how they could perhaps overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the biggest thing and one of the greatest things about email marketing is, as I just mentioned, you can be really personalized with it. So always think, as with any marketing campaign, any marketing tactic, who is it that you're talking to? What's going to resonate with them? And how can you be really specific around that person and the messages that you're sending to them? So certainly in its basic form, don't just blanket message your email marketing database. There's so many tools within platforms that you can use now, Klaviyo, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, whatever it is that you're using, that will allow you to segment your customer data by their behaviors, by what it is that they're doing on your website, so on and so forth. So super important to be as segmented and as targeted as you can be. And I guess to answer your question, probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see retailers making when using email is they're just blasting everyone with emails. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Your engagement rates, so your opening click-throughs, in doing that are going to go wallop. Your unsubscribe rates are going to go through the roof. You'll soon be able to see through the analytics in front of you and the content that you're sending out what's working and what isn't. So super important to look at your data and tailor your content strategy accordingly. So it's not always about selling, not always a one-size-fits-all approach. Very much about education, inspiring people, helping customers. You're soft selling, aren't you? You're building a picture of your business and your brand without saying, here, buy this. You're inciting trust. And then layering that with occasional messages around direct selling is far more powerful and impactful than sending out 3 emails a week to everybody saying, buy me now. It isn't going to work. As easy as that would be, no, it doesn't work.
I mean, it sounds really intimidating, especially for someone like me. I'm a natural logistician. I like maths, not words. I mean, I do talk a lot, but I still like maths more than words. And I was only chatting to someone this morning that's like, if you get me a job as a fractional supply chain and logistics director, I'd be really happy. But marketing leaves me sitting there, rocking back and forth, going, I just don't understand. It's so intimidating. Have you got some sort of simple examples that listeners could perhaps relate to in order to be able to feel a bit less overwhelmed? Because from my point of view, it's not natural to me and it is overwhelming. And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Again, kind of as with anything, it's keeping it simple, isn't it? The platforms, integrations, all of the different things that you can do with email, it is super overwhelming, isn't it? But as long as you have a good database, a database that you've generated yourself, you've not bought, very, very important as well. You are paying attention to basic segmentation. You've got your master email list and you think to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to create a segment of engaged subscribers. So a portion of those people that have been on my website in the past 30 days, and I'm going to send them a different message to my unengaged subscribers who haven't been on my website for the past 60 days. So you might try and pull back in your unengaged subscribers with some sort of a little offer, a flash sale, whatever else it might be, to try and bring them back into that fold of your engaged subscribers. And then your engaged subscribers, you might be treating them to some sort of VIP messaging or VIP product drops. They'll get to see stuff before anybody else because they're engaged, they're actively purchasing from you. That's probably just a basic example, like from a segmentation point of view. From actually generating email subscribers, one really, really simple thing to do is to add like a pop-up on your website, which again can be easily done with MailChimp, Klaviyo, another email service provider. So pop-up appears when subscriber to be lands on your website, they fill in the pop-up, you get their email, you send them a welcome email saying thank you, here's a bit more about our brand, so on and so forth. And gradually again, drip feed those soft selling communications with an eventual offer or something similar to help tip them to buy.
I think it also ties in really well with some of the conversations we've had with Steph talking about Shopify and e-commerce, with Fran about Pinterest, and it builds into something really, really powerful. But one of the things that, again, I hear a lot about this, and I defer to you guys, it's this word funnel. What on earth is a funnel? And how can we avoid scaring people by talking about funnels and this and that and the other and emails and automation without it sounding like we're just being robots?
You think of your funnel, visualize one. So top of funnel, that's your cold traffic, people that have never heard of you, aren't familiar with your brand. Middle is general awareness of your brand, potentially have heard with you, have engaged with you in some way before. And then bottom of funnel is purchasers, triggering people into purchasing. So that's our funnel flow, our funnel format. So if you think of the funnel as like a journey your customer goes on with you, the introduction, the start of the relationship. So in the early stages, you want people to feel comfortable. You want to welcome people into your world, to your brand. You could do this using a welcome email automation, as I just mentioned, getting people to sign up, drip feeding a first purchase discount, value-driven content, perhaps a product showcase, and then a reminder of their discount if they've not yet purchased. And you literally rinse and repeat that process for new subscribers that are coming into your world. And the great thing about setting up email automations like that, Claire, is you are selling in your sleep. Once you set up those automations, they're working as a salesperson in the background for you, which everyone wants, right? It's set up, it's done, and that's part of the effort of selling and keeping leads warm kind of taken off you. One sort of mistake, I guess, that I do see people making, again, as we've just mentioned, is sending inappropriate, bad-timed emails, for example, sending like a last-minute discount to people who have just purchased. That's going to annoy the hell out of you, right? Like you're going to be, well, I've just spent that money and I could have got a discount. And I have seen it as well where people do message and say, I've just bought this and you've just sent me a discount. Can I have the discount now? So you've got to be really careful about, who you're sending these messages to. Obviously, bad timing, again, just gives bad feeling between your brand and your customer. And it's so competitive online. If your competitor's doing that right and really getting this process right, where do you think that customer's going to go?
That's actually quite interesting because I talked about this when we talked about the buyer's remorse at Boxing Day in an earlier podcast we did,
Yeah.
where people would be disinclined to buy anything pre-Christmas because they know it's going to be 50% off as soon as Boxing Day lands. And I think that it is important, isn't it, where if you're going to offer a discount, that you have to then offer it back to people who might have purchased a full price. Otherwise, it's just going to really disengage them. But I mean, there's a lot of talk now about AI running all of this. And I feel like, yes, okay, it can help. It can help you with some structure and so on. And again, a previous podcast, we talked about AI as well and how it could be like your sort of secret admin assistant. But it's surely got to have that human touch. I mean, where does AI come into this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely right in what you just said. AI is, God, it's a time saver, right? Like, yes, you can help you like map out automation sequences, ideas for, funnel sequences, flows, and so on and so forth. But I certainly wouldn't recommend using, heavy AI like driven copy in your emails. Yes, perhaps use it for, helping you to think about how is this process, this flow, this series of emails going to work and be presented to my prospect, to my customer, but you tweak it and, mold it so it still has that human touch accordingly. So without sounding robotic. So yes, use it to inform what you're doing, allowing you to obviously hopefully scale what you're doing and increase customer retention. But the last thing you want to do, of course, is sound robotic and, unlike your brand. So, which unfortunately is probably the downside of using AI, right? It can sound very, blanket. You can quite easily see sometimes online, can't you, where people have generated AI copy, the long dashes.
Yeah, long dashes and funny icons.
That's right. Yeah. You can kind of spot it a mile off. So for God's sake, no, certainly put your own touch on it if you've been using it initially, for sure.
Well, that kind of leads me into the next point, because I've worked in B2B for most of my life. I help retailers, but typically that's me being a service provider to them. So things like CRM, customer relationship management, and data and so on is normal. But a lot of retailers don't understand how they can use CRM tools, particularly for loyalty and for everything you've said about email and automation. How could an independent retailer or even a large retailer use a CRM tool in a way that works with a consumer rather than the known customer, which it's typically used for?
Yeah, sure. So again, like CRM is just so powerful. There's many out there on the market. I really like using Active Campaign for CRM-based email marketing in particular. So not only can you segment by, Claire, as you just mentioned, obviously existing customers, their purchase history, purchase preferences and so on, but you can also start to build out profiles within the platform of people that have been browsing certain pages on your website, that have spent X amount of time on a page, that have abandoned cart, so on and so forth. So again, all these different sort of profiles that you're building that can then be used as criteria to inform and segment, again, your communications to make them very tailored, very, very, very relevant to the person that you're sending the communication to. So super powerful. And again, you can be as basic or as like complex with it as you like. Recommendation would obviously always be to keep it simple, specifically when you're starting out. But certainly, again, those segments around like browsing history and timing a message to people that have spent a lot of time looking at a product, the intent's there. What do you need to do to educate, inform, and tip them into a sale? And that's where you sort of, your segmentation, your drip feeding emails comes in.
This sounds really, again, for a small business, it does sound quite overwhelming. How much time and effort would you suggest that they would need to spend? Or are we talking about them allocating a budget to actually getting somebody else in to do it for them? Because, from my experience, most of the independent retailers I've worked with, they love their product. They love their customers. They can dress the store and make the windows beautiful, but they're not necessarily that tech savvy. And this scares people. So is it better to perhaps invest in outsourcing support, or is it better to get somebody to teach you how to do it, because then it takes away the fear?
Again, a number of the clients that I've worked with through Retail Champion are those exact people, Claire. So busy store owners, be that a physical store, online store. I personally have worked with clients on a consultancy basis, giving training on Klaviyo, for example. And client has often sort of started to do it themselves and then gone, do you know what? Can you just do it? So it very much depends on, as you just mentioned, the time, of course, it takes, like we all have our own proficiencies, don't we? I couldn't do what you do. You probably couldn't do what I do. You got to be realistic, haven't you? And I think, yes, ultimately, of course, if you have the budget to do it, I would always recommend using a professional and someone that knows what they're doing, because God, you can't half waste your time, your resource, and potentially your sanity by trying to learn something that is so overwhelming, really, or can be, and ultimately frustrating if you're, not getting the results that you want.
And a lot of people talk to me about, I've had a go at Facebook ads or Google ads and this and that and the other, and I've spent a fortune and I've got nothing back because they don't actually understand how to do it properly and to get the segmentation and all that stuff that you do. I can run a £30 million a week supply chain, but I can't do this. That's why we work together, isn't it?
This is it, exactly. Yes, yeah.
But it's really hard for small businesses sometimes to be able to make that leap of faith and say, you know what, I'm going to have to spend some money on somebody else doing something for me, and I'm going to have to spend some money on an ad campaign. But I want to know that it's being done right and I'm not just burning through my whatever it is, even if it's £50 a day, which, could return £500 in sales if they get it right, couldn't it? But
yeah.
So what would you give as advice to people when it comes to the sort of the remarketing and the paid ads and all that good stuff, which is, again, another fear factor because it's spending money?
Whenever someone comes to me with a request to talk about paid ads, that is the number one thing they'll say. I have spent X amount, hundreds, thousands of pounds on Facebook ads and I've seen nothing. I'm not getting my return. I blown my budget, etc., etc. I literally hear that all the time. I would certainly recommend, again, if you can talk to a professional, get someone to help you from the early stages, do that. But at a very basic level, if you have some budget to spend on paid ads, the first thing I'd look at is probably retargeting people that have been on your website, that have abandoned cart. Again, people that are warm to your brand and are aware of you are far more likely to buy than someone that has never heard of you. So that's kind of where you start. That's like your low hanging fruit. I'd certainly also recommend, from a paid ad perspective, rather than going for getting people to purchase from you using your ad campaigns, because you can set up things like, purchase objective, lead objective. There's all sorts of different stuff you can do with Facebook ads in particular. Actually use Facebook ads to build your email database. So you can get like email subscribers for £1 there or thereabouts, whereas you could pay 10 times that, upwards of 10 times that, to try and get someone to purchase from you. So if you see, like, from a budget point of view, like how beneficial that's going to be, spending a few £100s on generating a few hundred of subscribers that you can then nurture on email, they're yours then. You can do with them as you wish, rather than pumping loads and loads of money into Meta to try and get purchases. Got a small budget, that would be the best thing to do. That would be where I would start for sure. You're going to see a much better return on your investment, return on ad spend. You are on cold traffic and competing with bigger retailers online. When you're online and you're spending money online for ads, you're effectively in an auction. Those that are spending more are going to get seen via your smaller budget. So just really bear that in mind and think about what you're doing.
Well, I'm going to throw a bit of a question out there, which we'd not previously discussed. So I apologise in advance.
Go for it.
What would you tell me to do?
Okay, so if you're generating leads for Retail Champion.
Yeah, because there must be people out there who've got service businesses as well. This is not my area of expertise whatsoever. Yeah. And it'd just be really interesting to have a few top tips that you might give to people like me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of scenarios that pop into my head instantly. One is the lead generation scenario that I've just mentioned. So perhaps on LinkedIn, obviously you're looking in a B2B space, you could provide some sort of lead magnet, a download to an exclusive podcast, 10 tips on selling in retail in 2026, just pulling something out of the air there, but something that's going to be super, super valuable to the people that you're trying to talk to. Get that email in for a few pounds and start to, again, nurture them in the back end on email. So you've spent that little bit of budget getting that person into your world, And then your email marketing is doing that for you on the back end. Conversely, you could get people to sign up for a podcast, like a live podcast or a live training session, which I personally have found really, really effective in the past few years in terms of lead generation and converting people into a client, doing face-to-face, seminars. Again, very, very relevant to the people that I'm speaking to, has generated clients for me previously in the B2B space.
The whole story comes together when you start leveraging the paid social, maybe Google Ads, LinkedIn, CRM. So as a bigger picture, if somebody was ready to go all in and make that leap of faith and say, you know what, 2026 is my year and I am just going to go for it, how would you put it all together?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an ecosystem, isn't it, of touch points, as you said. So yeah, like from a paid social perspective, if you're kind of using these tactics that we're speaking about today as part of that ecosystem, certainly think about putting ad spend behind like top performing content. That's a really great one. If you're scratching your head over like, ooh, what do I write in my paid ad? What do I focus on? So on and so forth. Well, look at your analytics, look at your social analytics, look at even emails that have performed well and put spend behind top performing content.
Can I just interject there? There's
Yes.
a lot of people that won't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sure.
So
yes.
they've probably got all this information about how their business performs online, but they don't actually know how to tap into it. So that's probably, not wanting to make a blatant sales pitch. That's probably where working with experts like us, well, you in particular, and people like Steph and Fran, really is important, because you can't be an expert in everything. I mean, I pay an accountant because I can't do my own accounts.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
As a small business owner, we have to tap into experts, and sometimes we have to make that leap of faith. And everything you've just said, I'm already sitting here thinking, I haven't got a clue. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And I think it's all very well, like you said, sort of doing the delivery, the front end. I know perhaps you know how to put an email marketing piece together. Of course, you know how to write a social post. But what happens when you share that content? Like, it's the analytics behind it, isn't it? Looking at an email as you opens, your click-through rates and subscribe rates, looking at benchmarks. You can easily get benchmarks online. Again, from like Klaviyo is a fantastic source of information when it comes to industry benchmarks. For email, for e-commerce, I think they release like a white paper every quarter. So whatever vertical you're working in, be it fashion and beauty, natural products, whatever else it might be, they kind of have a list of all the sort of benchmark stats available on Klaviyo by industry that you can again benchmark against, so you can see, is what I'm doing working? Is it right? So certainly look for those sorts of pieces of information, and there's a lot of that online, so it doesn't take too much to try and find it.
And I guess to wrap up, so that we've got some key takeaways from this, there's some quick wins and there's some avoids. And I think if you're a small retailer, you could feel overwhelmed by this stuff. I mean, I feel overwhelmed, and I've been in business for 23 years and I've managed to survive for 23 years. But a lot of this stuff and the pace of change is quite something. But I think if I'm right in distilling what you've said, it's about segmenting your audience and making sure you know who they are and not being a one-size-fits-all kind of communication. Using tools that help you automate whilst also remaining human. And if you're going to use ads and spend money on advertising, you need somebody to help you to understand how to spend that money smartly, because otherwise you could be spending a fortune and getting absolutely nothing back. That's my summarisation of what we've heard today.
It's very good.
Well, you've taught me something. I love it when I have these conversations because I learn so much. I still can't do it. At least I know that what you're doing for me, what you're doing for me works. But what have you got any other like hot tip? Like if it was the just one thing, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think I've banged the drum about this over the past half an hour, but the big thing for me is overall, no matter whether you're doing paid, email, social, whatever it might be, segmenting your audience and thinking about who it is that you're speaking to and creating those tailored communications around that person is the most powerful thing that you can do. When you're looking at segmenting on email, even 2 segments are better than 1. Don't blanket market to people. When you're targeting your paid ads, broad audience targeting does sometimes work with smaller budgets. But again, think about your demographic. How old are they? What are their interests? What are they into? Where do they live? And build out your personas online accordingly. Getting smart about who your customer is, really understanding them and creating those tailored messages is worth its weight in gold, rather than thinking, oh God, I need to send an email out, so I'm just going to quickly blast one out to everyone. You're just going to harm your deliverability rates, subscriber rates overall. So spend the time putting together a proper plan, thinking about who it is that you're talking to will pay dividends. So that would be my big sort of key takeaway.
It's brilliant because actually, back in the day when I ran conferences and I just blanket emailed and I was like, oh God, I've got to send a weekly email. I was like, panic, what am I going to say? And actually, that is brilliant practical advice. And I'm taking away another one, that email is gold dust. Email subscribers are your future customers, and getting the messaging correct is absolutely essential. So I'd really like to thank you for such practical advice, and hopefully a lot of small retailers will benefit.
Absolute pleasure. And I hope everyone's learned a few things today. So no, thanks so much for having me on.
Well, there was the magic. Marketing that works without the panic, the stress, or the wasted budget. I'm Clare Bailey, the Retail Champion. I've been joined today by Sophie Walton, and this has been Retail Reckoning.
Yeah.